What would you do if the two people you trusted most, your husband and your best friend, betrayed you? I didn't just confront them. I exposed their secret in front of everyone. And now I can't stop asking myself, was I right, or did I go too far? I had been married to my husband, Daniel, for 7 years. We had what looked like the perfect marriage: family trips, dinner dates, matching smiles for social media. And then there was my best friend, Claire. She had been like a sister to me since college. She was always at our house, always part of our lives. I trusted her with everything, my secrets, my joys, my fears. But slowly, little things started to feel off. Daniel began working late more often, while Claire seemed to drop by at unusual hours. Their inside jokes no longer felt harmless. And the way they sometimes looked at each other, like there was something I wasn't meant to see, started gnawing at me. Then came the night that changed everything. Daniel left his phone on the couch when he went to shower. A message popped up from Claire. Just 4 words: "Can't wait tonight, red heart." My world stopped spinning. I scrolled, and the messages told the story I had dreaded. Hotel rooms, stolen weekends, whispered promises that belonged to me, not her. I felt my heart break in silence, but I couldn't keep it to myself. Not this. Not their betrayal. So I planned carefully. At Claire's birthday dinner, surrounded by friends and family, I stood up and played a slideshow I had made. But instead of happy memories, it was screenshots of their messages. The room went cold. Claire froze. Daniel went pale. Their perfect little secret was over. Now everyone knows what they did. I lost my husband and my best friend in a single night, but I kept my dignity. Still, the question lingers: am I the asshole for exposing them so brutally? Or did they deserve every second of that humiliation? For 7 years, I lived what I thought was the dream life. I had a loving husband, Daniel, who everyone admired for his charm and steady nature. He was the kind of man people described as dependable, the kind of man who always seemed to have it together. We built our life brick by brick: quiet dinners at home, vacations that left us smiling for days, and photos filled with laughter that painted a picture of happiness for the world to see. To anyone looking in, ours was a marriage worth envying. But it wasn't just Daniel who completed this perfect picture. My best friend Claire was a part of it too. She wasn't just my friend. She was like family. Claire had been by my side since college, through heartbreaks and milestones, through wild nights and quiet mornings. She knew me better than anyone, and Daniel welcomed her as if she were his own sister. The 3 of us were inseparable, and I never thought to question that closeness. After all, when you've trusted someone for over a decade, suspicion is the last thing on your mind. Claire had a way of blending into our home effortlessly. She'd stop by unannounced with a bottle of wine, sit on our couch, and laugh with Daniel over jokes I sometimes didn't even understand. I never felt left out. If anything, I felt grateful that my husband and my best friend got along so well. People would comment on how lucky I was, that not only did I have a solid marriage, but also a best friend who loved spending time with us both. To me, it felt like a blessing. I used to think of us as a trio bound by love and loyalty. Claire was there when Daniel and I bought our first house. She helped me pick out curtains, furniture, even surprised us with a painting for the living room wall. When Daniel got his promotion, she was the first to pop a bottle of champagne at our kitchen table. They celebrated my joys as if they were their own, and I reveled in the comfort of believing I was surrounded by people who only wanted the best for me. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was to the cracks beneath the surface. At the time, though, I saw none of it. I believed in the illusion, this picture-perfect marriage, this sister-like friendship, this life that seemed so secure. It never crossed my mind that behind those smiles, behind those toasts, behind that perfect image we projected to the world, a secret was already blooming in the shadows. IT started subtly, almost too quietly for me to notice. Daniel began working late more often than usual. He used to be home by 6, ready to eat dinner and tell me about his day. But suddenly, there were endless last-minute meetings, projects that supposedly needed his attention, and nights where he'd walk in past midnight with a vague explanation and a tired smile. At first, I brushed it off. After all, careers come with demands, and Daniel had always been ambitious. But in the pit of my stomach, a small uneasiness began to stir. Claire's behavior shifted too, though at the time I couldn't put my finger on it. She stopped confiding in me the way she used to. Conversations that once flowed with laughter and inside jokes suddenly felt guarded, as if she were holding something back. She'd look at her phone mid-sentence, smile faintly, and change the topic. I noticed her visits to our house becoming more unpredictable. Sometimes she'd show up unannounced when I wasn't home, only to casually say she'd been just dropping something off when I asked about it later. And then there were the glances, the kind that last a fraction of a second too long, the kind you might miss if you weren't looking. I'd catch Daniel and Claire exchanging a smile across the room, or laughing about something they didn't bother to explain. At first, I told myself it was nothing. They'd been close for years, and I didn't want to seem paranoid. But every time I brushed away the thought, it came back stronger, whispering at me that something wasn't right. Nights became the hardest. Daniel started guarding his phone more closely, keeping it face down on the nightstand, taking it with him even when he left the room for a glass of water. Once, I reached for it absent-mindedly, only for him to snatch it back with a nervous laugh, claiming it was work stuff. I tried to ignore the sting of doubt, but my heart beat faster every time I saw his screen light up with a message he didn't want me to see. Still, I pushed down my suspicions, telling myself it was stress, that I was imagining things. I wanted to believe in the people I loved most, my husband and my best friend. Yet beneath that fragile hope, something inside me was shifting. The first cracks in my perfect world had appeared, and though I didn't know it yet, they would only grow wider until everything I thought I knew came crashing down. They say your intuition speaks before your mind catches up, and mine had been screaming at me for weeks. Every time Daniel came home late, every time Claire dodged my questions with a forced smile, my stomach twisted. It wasn't one big thing. It was the accumulation of small, quiet inconsistencies. A missed call here, vague excuse there. Moments that should have been ordinary began to feel staged, like everyone was reading from a script I hadn't been given. Still, I found myself wrestling with the same question night after night. Was I overthinking, or was something truly wrong? I replayed conversations in my head, searching for cracks I might have missed. When Daniel talked about his long hours, his voice sounded rehearsed, almost too casual. When Claire insisted she'd been busy with work, I remembered how she used to tell me every little detail of her life, no matter how mundane. That openness was gone, replaced with carefully chosen words and nervous laughter. Yet, I still couldn't bring myself to accuse either of them. What if I was imagining it all? What if my paranoia destroyed the two most important relationships in my life? At night, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, torn between two versions of reality. One was the safe, familiar world where my husband was faithful and my best friend was loyal. The other was a darker possibility, one I was terrified to admit, that the two people I trusted most were hiding something from me. My heart wanted to believe the first. My gut whispered the second. And every time I silenced that inner voice, it came back louder, more insistent, more undeniable. Even small gestures began to take on new meaning. A laugh between them that once felt harmless now left me cold. A text message that made Daniel smile became a dagger of suspicion in my chest. I started watching them closely, analyzing every glance, every pause, every word left unspoken. It was exhausting. This silent investigation I hadn't chosen but couldn't stop. I hated the version of myself who doubted, who watched, who second-guessed. But even worse, I hated the possibility that I might be right. I wanted so badly to trust them, to dismiss my gut and return to the comfort of certainty. But deep down, I knew the truth was slipping through the cracks, waiting to reveal itself. My doubts weren't random paranoia. They were signals. And though I tried to push them aside, each passing day made it harder to ignore the growing shadow between my husband, my best friend, and me. The truth came to me in the most ordinary of moments, on a quiet evening I almost didn't think twice about. Daniel had come home late again, muttering something about another draining day at work. He dropped his bag by the couch and went straight into the shower, leaving his phone carelessly behind for the first time in weeks. Normally, he guarded it like a lifeline, always tucked in his pocket, always out of reach. That night, though, It sat there glowing on the cushion as if it had been waiting for me. I tried to ignore it at first, telling myself I wasn't that kind of wife. But then the screen lit up with a message. My breath caught in my throat when I saw the name, Claire. For a split second, I convinced myself it was nothing, just another harmless update between friends. But then I read the words that shattered me into pieces. Can't wait tonight, Redheart. My hand trembled as I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so loudly I swore I could hear it echoing in the room. Curiosity and dread wrestled inside me as I unlocked his phone. Part of me begged to put it down, to pretend I hadn't seen a thing. But the other part, the part that had been living with weeks of suspicion, pushed me forward. The messages unfolded like a nightmare I couldn't escape. Texts about our spot, whispers of last weekend was perfect, promises of stolen moments. Each line I read felt like a knife twisting deeper, proof that my gut had been right all along. I couldn't stop scrolling. The more I read, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a fling. This was a full-blown affair, planned with precision and carried out with ease, hidden in plain sight. The casual way they spoke, the intimacy in their words. It was the kind of affection Daniel used to show me. Only now, he was giving it to her. My best friend. The person I had trusted with everything. Betrayal didn't feel strong enough to describe what coursed through my veins in that moment. By the time Daniel emerged from the shower, towel draped over his shoulders, I had already placed his phone back exactly where he'd left it. He looked at me with a smile that now felt rehearsed, hollow, poisonous. I forced myself to smile back, hiding the storm raging inside me. He had no idea what I knew now, no clue that his carefully guarded secret had slipped through his fingers in one careless moment. And though my heart was breaking, one thing was suddenly clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. Once I saw that first message, I couldn't stop myself from digging deeper. It was as if my hands moved on their own, scrolling, opening threads, piecing together the puzzle I never wanted to solve. The truth stared back at me in black and white. Months of conversations, dates, times, places. They hadn't just slipped into temptation. They had built an entire world behind my back, a secret relationship woven carefully between the cracks of my life. Every word I read pulled me further away from the illusion I had been living in and deeper into a nightmare I couldn't escape. The texts weren't vague or open to interpretation. They were raw and specific. Plans to meet at a hotel downtown, Claire telling Daniel she loved how dangerous it felt, Daniel replying that he wished he could hold her all night. My stomach turned as I realized these weren't isolated incidents. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, a choice made over and over again by two people who were supposed to love me the most. The details were relentless, each message like a hammer blow breaking apart the fragile walls of denial I had built. Worse than the intimacy were the jokes. The cruel, mocking undertones buried in some of their exchanges. A comment from Claire about how naive I could be, a laughing emoji from Daniel in response. They were laughing at me. My pain was their entertainment. The realization burned hotter than any heartbreak. The people I trusted most didn't just betray me. They belittled me, made me the punchline of their sordid affair. It was humiliation in its purest form, written out in threads of text that I couldn't unread. I sat frozen, the phone heavy in my hand, feeling the ground beneath me shift. The life I had built, the love I had nurtured, the friendship I had cherished, it all felt like a cruel setup, a stage play where I was the only one who didn't know her role. Every kiss Daniel had given me, every "I love you," every comforting word from Claire, all of it became tainted, contaminated by the truth staring at me from that glowing screen. It wasn't love anymore. It was betrayal dressed as affection. As I put the phone down, I realized there was no going back. No unseeing, no erasing, no pretending this wasn't real. The truth was out, and it had ripped through me like glass. And though Daniel still laughed in the next room, oblivious to what I now knew, I could feel the shift inside me. The woman who had trusted blindly was gone. In her place was someone who knew the cold, sharp truth, and who would never look at either of them the same way again. In the days that followed, I became an actress in my own life. Every smile I offered, every laugh I forced, every casual conversation was nothing more than a mask carefully placed over a storm. Daniel still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, Claire still called me to catch up, and I played along even though the very sound of their voices now felt poisonous. I had to, because I wasn't ready to confront them, not yet. So I swallowed the rage, the heartbreak, and the humiliation, and carried it silently, as though nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Meals at the dinner table became unbearable. Every time Daniel glanced at his phone or chuckled at a message, my chest tightened with the knowledge of who was on the other side. When Claire hugged me during one of her visits, I fought the urge to recoil, to scream in her face. Instead, I hugged her back, all while my mind replayed the words I had read, the cruel jokes they had shared at my expense. They thought they were clever. They thought I was blind. Little did they know I had already seen behind their curtain. The silence weighed on me like a physical burden. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed beside Daniel, his breathing steady as he slept peacefully, while I stared into the darkness, clutching the knowledge that I couldn't share with anyone. My friends would have told me to leave. My family would have demanded explanations, but I wasn't ready. I needed proof, more than texts, more than suspicions. I needed to feel in control of the moment I revealed what I knew. And so, I kept my secret close, suffering in silence. Every interaction became part of my performance. I laughed at Claire's stories, even though my chest burned. I listened to Daniel's excuses, nodding like a supportive wife, even though every word dripped with lies. I became two people, the broken woman inside and the composed figure outside. And the longer I lived this double life, the stronger my anger grew. My silence wasn't weakness, it was preparation. Every forced smile was another brick in the wall I was building, a wall behind which I was planning my next move. Though they had no idea, every day that passed brought me closer to the edge. I wasn't just hurting anymore. I was waiting. Waiting for the right moment, the right place, the perfect stage where their betrayal could no longer hide in shadows. And as I bottled up my pain, I knew it was only a matter of time before the silence broke, and when it did, the fallout would be something neither of them could escape. There's only so much a person can endure before something inside them snaps. For weeks, I carried the truth like a hidden wound, bleeding silently while pretending nothing was wrong. But the weight became unbearable. Every laugh between them felt like a dagger, every casual excuse a reminder of the lies I was forced to swallow. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was mockery. They were living their affair openly in front of me, confident I'd never see it. That arrogance became the final straw. I remember the exact moment the decision settled in me. We were at dinner, the three of us sitting at the same table where we'd shared countless meals before. Daniel reached for Claire's wine glass by mistake, and the way they looked at each other, too quick, too knowing, was all the confirmation I needed. I smiled politely, but inside, a storm was raging. I realized then that staying silent wasn't protecting me. It was protecting them. And I refused to carry their secret any longer. That night, while Daniel slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake with my mind racing. I thought about confronting him alone, demanding an explanation. I thought about screaming at Claire the next time she showed her face at my door. But none of those images gave me peace. What I wanted wasn't just an admission. I wanted the truth to be undeniable. I wanted everyone who had ever believed in their masks to see what I saw. Not in whispers, not in private, but in one devastating moment that left no room for denial. I began to plan, carefully and deliberately. Every detail mattered. Where it would happen, who would be there, how I would reveal it. I gathered the screenshots of their messages, compiling them into a file I kept hidden. Each line of text became a weapon, proof that would pierce through every excuse, every lie. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the power they had stolen from me when they thought I'd never discover their betrayal. With each passing day, my resolve hardened. I no longer felt like a victim trapped in silence. I was someone preparing for a reckoning. And though Daniel and Claire laughed and schemed as if the world was still theirs to manipulate, I carried a secret of my own now. Their time was running out. The stage was almost set, and soon, the performance they thought they were controlling would end with me pulling the final curtain. The night of Claire's birthday arrived like fate had delivered me the perfect stage. Friends, co-workers, and family gathered in a warmly lit restaurant. the air buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. Claire was radiant, basking in the attention, while Daniel sat close to her, their secret glances almost imperceptible to anyone but me. I watched them carefully, my face calm, my voice steady, but beneath the surface my heart thundered with the knowledge of what was about to unfold. Tonight, their smiles would fade. Tonight, the truth would breathe in the open. I had prepared everything with precision. In the days leading up, I'd created a slideshow that looked like a tribute to Claire, pictures from our college days, vacations together, moments we had shared as best friends. But woven among those memories, waiting like venom behind glass, were the screenshots. Line after line of proof. Messages too explicit to explain away, words dripping with intimacy and betrayal. All it would take was a press of a button, and their secret world would collapse in front of everyone they cared about. As the candles were blown out and the music softened, I stood up, smiling politely as I tapped my glass for attention. I wanted to do something special for Claire, I announced, my voice steady though my palms were damp. A little trip down memory lane. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and photos of Claire and me filled the wall. Laughter rippled through the room, the warmth of nostalgia pulling everyone in. But then, without warning, the tone shifted. A message appeared on the screen, "Can't wait tonight, Redheart." The room went silent. The laughter died. One by one, the text scrolled across the screen, undeniable proof of their affair playing like a twisted performance for all to see. Gasps erupted, chairs scraped against the floor, and whispers filled the air like wildfire. I didn't need to say a word. The evidence spoke for itself. Claire's face drained of color. Daniel's hands clenched against the table, their carefully constructed facade unraveling in front of the very people they'd worked so hard to deceive. I stood there, watching them squirm, my expression unreadable. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was an unveiling, a revelation that tore through the lies they had spun so effortlessly. In that moment, their betrayal was no longer mine to carry. It belonged to everyone in the room, etched into their memories forever. And though I had prepared for this moment, even I wasn't ready for the silence that followed. The heavy, suffocating silence of truth finally laid bare. The silence that followed the final screenshot was deafening, thick enough to choke on. For a few seconds, nobody moved, as if the entire room had frozen in time. Then, whispers broke through the stillness, rippling across the tables like sparks catching fire. "Is this real?" someone muttered. "Oh my God," another gasped. Eyes darted between Claire, Daniel, and me, their confusion turning to disbelief as they pieced together the obvious. The weight of the evidence was inescapable. Every word, every heart emoji, every stolen moment displayed for all to see. Claire was the first to break. She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor, her face pale and trembling. "This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice shaking. But the words fell flat, swallowed by the very proof projected above her head. Daniel sat rigid, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the screen as though he could will it all away. His silence was more damning than any denial. He knew, as everyone else now did, that there was no escape from what I had revealed. The room erupted into chaos. Friends whispered harshly, exchanging horrified glances. Claire's family members looked stunned, some shaking their heads, others glaring at her in disbelief. A woman at the far end of the table muttered, with her best friend's husband, loud enough for half the room to hear. Each word cut into Claire and Daniel like knives, but they had no shield, no defense left. The perfect image they had built for themselves crumbled to dust in front of everyone. Daniel finally tried to speak, his voice low and desperate. "We can talk about this privately," he pleaded, glancing at me with a look that was equal parts anger and fear. But his words were drowned out by the murmurs and the judgment that filled the space. No one was interested in his excuses. They had already seen the truth with their own eyes. And as I stood there, I felt no need to answer him. His panic was its own confession. Claire sank back into her chair, covering her face with her hands as tears slipped through her fingers. The party that was meant to celebrate her had turned into her public unraveling. Around us, people began gathering their things, unwilling to sit in the wreckage of such betrayal. The room had transformed from a celebration into a courtroom, with no jury needed. The verdict was clear. And though I remained silent, my presence at the center of it all was louder than any accusation I could have spoken. After the chaos of that night, I found myself sitting alone, replaying every moment in my mind. The gasps, the silence, the judgment etched on the faces of friends and family, it all lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. I had wanted the truth to come out, and it had. But now, in the quiet aftermath, another question gnawed at me. Had I gone too far? By exposing them so publicly, had I become just as cruel as the betrayal I was punishing? The doubt clung to me, whispering in the spaces between my anger and my pain. Some people reached out afterward, their voices filled with sympathy, calling me brave, saying I had done what they wished they had the courage to do in their own lives. You gave them what they deserved, one friend told me, her words firm and unapologetic. Yet others were less certain. I could see it in their eyes, hear it in the hesitation of their voices. They didn't condone what Daniel and Claire had done, but they wondered if humiliation in front of everyone they loved was the right way to handle it. Their silence carried judgment of its own. I tried to weigh the scales in my mind. On one side was their betrayal, months of lies, intimacy stolen from under my nose, trust shattered beyond repair. On the other was my choice, the calculated decision to reveal their affair not in private whispers, but in a spectacle they could never undo. Was it justice, or was it vengeance? Did I expose the truth to free myself, or did I do it to watch them suffer? The line between the two blurred more with every passing day. Daniel's words echoed in my memory. We could have talked about this privately. Claire's tear-streaked face haunted me in moments of silence. Part of me wanted to dismiss their pain as nothing compared to mine. They had earned every ounce of it. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the years of love, the laughter, the friendship, wondered if I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I had destroyed them in front of everyone, and while it was the truth that broke them, I was the one who chose the method. And so I'm left with the question I can't shake. Am I the asshole? For exposing my husband and my best friend so brutally, so publicly? Or was it the only way to reclaim my dignity after they stole everything else from me? The betrayal was theirs, but the reveal was mine. And somewhere between those two truths, I am left to wonder whether justice and cruelty are sometimes just two sides of the same coin. In the days that followed, the fallout was impossible to ignore. Daniel moved out, his things packed in silence, while Claire vanished from social circles she once dominated. The two people who had meant the most to me now walked as ghosts in my world, their names whispered with disdain and pity wherever they went. And though I no longer had to carry the burden of their secret, I discovered that exposing them didn't bring the clean sense of relief I had imagined. Instead, it left me standing in the wreckage, surrounded by pieces of a life I could never rebuild. Friends checked in, some praising me for my courage, others quietly distancing themselves as though betrayal might be contagious. My phone lit up with messages of support, but also with warnings that not everything has to be public. The divide was clear. While I had freed myself from lies, I had also drawn a line in the sand, one that left people choosing sides whether they wanted to or not. Late at night, I replayed it all in my head. The laughter before the reveal, the silence after, the look on their faces when the truth became undeniable. I had wanted justice, but justice doesn't come neatly wrapped. It comes jagged, with edges that cut in both directions. And as much as they had hurt me, I couldn't escape the sting of knowing I had chosen to hurt them in return. Life has continued, though not in the way I ever envisioned. The marriage I once fought for is gone. The friendship I once cherished turned to ash. What remains is the truth, and the question that will forever hang in the air. Did I stand up for myself, or did I let bitterness guide my hand too far? And so I leave it here, not as a lesson, not as a warning, but as a story that still lingers in the back of my mind. I exposed them, yes. I tore the mask away. But as the dust settles, I find myself staring into the mirror, wondering if in the pursuit of justice, I became something else entirely. The world may judge them, but in the end, I am left asking, was I right, or did I simply become part of the betrayal? So I exposed my husband and my best friend in front of everyone they loved, But now I'm left wondering, was I standing up for myself or did I go too far? Tell me, am I the asshole?